Get Rich Education is brought to you by Ridge Lending Group, Apartment Investor Mastery, and Producers Wealth.
You're listening to the show that has created more passive income for people than nearly any show in the world. This is the powerful Get Rich Education.
Hey, welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 195. I'm Keith Weinhold from Beirut, Lebanon to Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and across 188 nations worldwide. There is one thing that I definitely know about you, and that's the fact that you are an investor. I know that about you for sure. And how could I know? That's because you actually make hundreds of investment decisions every single day. If you've decided to do a cash out refinance on your own home to free up some investable dollars, that was an investment decision. If you just decided to have your car's oil change postponed for a month, that was an investment decision. If you just bought rental property in Memphis rather than Birmingham, that was an investment decision. And if you decided to bake a pie rather than walk your dog, that was another investment decision. Now, other than just the investor that you and everyone is, you might be a real estate investor too, maybe even one that focuses on looking to build cash flow. We discuss that a lot here. But as an investor, your best and highest use could very well be building multiple income streams, especially passive ones. In this world and in this one life that you've been given, you need multiple income streams if you want to live your best in this world and give your best to this world. So then let's look at your life and see which activities are therefore putting money into your pocket and which ones are taking money out of your pocket. What about going to college? That does not create income. That is an outflow. Now, college does train you, but it trains you to learn to work, which only brings you one inflow. And what about that job of yours? That's the one inflow that college taught you to get. Plus, it takes a ton of your time and maybe even selling your soul. What about a 401k? That is definitely an outflow until you are in your 60s and 70s. That is awful. IRAs, that's an outflow. A 403b, a 457 plan, no different. They are outflows. What about buying the house that you live inside? That's an outflow. What about renting the house that you live inside? That is another outflow. Stocks that don't pay a dividend, that is an outflow. Mutual funds and ETFs, outflow, outflow. Cryptocurrency, that doesn't produce income either. What about precious metals? Well, your Pamp Suisse gold bars or your stack of Engelhard silver bars, those things don't produce income. You're not renting out those stacks of bars to somebody else. What about playing the California lottery? That's an outflow for almost everybody playing. How about a business that you own yourself? Now, that can provide a substantial inflow, although it takes a special type of person, arguably, to be an entrepreneur, and usually some pretty significant startup resources, including much of the addition of your most valuable resource, substantial amounts of your own time in getting your own business up and running. So then what about starting a business where you can easily tap into an existing system, where a roadmap is already laid out in front of you, where you're renting investment property to others that's managed by others, and it's also a durable business model, and it's something you can easily understand, and it's a proven passive income generator, a proven inflow. So that's exactly why we talk about what we talk about here at Get Rich Education, getting multiple cash flowing real estate income streams from some of the best investor advantage markets, and not just different geographies, but also in different use types where there's sustainable demand, like both residential real estate and agricultural real estate, for example. Do you know how many different sources of income the average millionaire has? What do you think? How many different sources of income does the average millionaire have? It's 7. 7 different income sources. And this is just for those with a net worth of at least $1 million, which really isn't all that much these days. Now, here's something actionable for you then. Just look at your last month's bank statement from Bank of America or Wells Fargo or your local credit union or wherever you do your banking. Okay, how many different inflows are there? Well, most people only have one inflow source, their job, and it's just 100% their job. And then they have a bunch of smaller outflows. That's what their monthly statement looks like. Well, instead, you are collecting a bunch of inflows. You know something? I actually knew that I was on the right track. Gosh, it was about 10 years ago when I was in the process of qualifying for another residential income property loan. It was something that my mortgage loan officer told me after he had all of my documents, and it was just a little comment. He said, Keith, you have so many inflows and outflows. That was very telling to me because I demonstrated to him that I was an unusual borrower, and I hadn't really even thought about it at that time. So yeah, most people don't think this way or act this way or have a monthly bank statement that reflects that. And I don't have any interest in being usual. Look, it is not the time to get the job that your mom always wanted you to and just stick with it forever. It never has been. You love your mom, but she was probably not the queen of passive income so much as an adherent to social convention. As much as we love her, you could earn money. You could pay taxes. You could live like a pauper and save like a miser. And a lot of people actually think that's a good thing. Most people actually think that is the way. Struggling is good. Settling for less all my life is good. How did it get to that? I mean, they are still driving their 2002 station wagon that has 298,000 miles on it, and they think that right there demonstrates that they are good with their finances. So this scarce, debt-free, and life deferral crowd, they actually pat each other on the back over stuff like that. I'll tell you that driving a 15 or 20-year-old car with 300,000 miles on it could very well indicate that there's a lack of financial savvy there. Not a bunch of it, a lack of it. Now, yes, it is conceivable, 1 in 100 million, that you can build wealth by inventing the next Facebook or striking it big in the New York lottery or picking the latest hot cryptocurrency and riding it up and selling it at just the right time. Or instead of things like that, what if you just keep building upon a systematic approach that increases your passive income and ramps up all throughout your life? You could work more hours, but you'll run out of hours. So keep buying income, buy passive income until you have enough of it to pay your bills and support your lifestyle. Then you are free. Now, once you become free, if you want to go beyond freeing up your time to the next step and build wealth and have your own private plane or whatever after that, that's fine. But get free first. Maybe you have the dream of having the time to build your own designer clothing business and ultimately building wealth through that. But see, having passive income from real estate to fall back on while you're getting up and running, that builds you a bridge to that business that you want to build. That will give you the cushion that you need to do that if something like that is your dream. So you want to be free. And why do you want to be free? You must desperately get freedom of time for yourself first. And if you don't know why you're doing this, do all of this so that you can start to be yourself. Gosh, above all else, be yourself. I mean, look, how many times in your life has someone told you that when you don't know how to act in a stressful situation or some difficult moment and you've never been there before, that the best thing that you can possibly do in your life is be yourself or even be true to yourself? I'll tell you, the person that's dispensing that advice to you, that person isn't even taking their own advice. And why is that? That's because they themselves trade their time for dollars at a job that they're not passionate about. And if you do that too, you aren't even being yourself. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think you already know your entire life is disrupted unnaturally. You might wake up to an alarm that rudely cuts through your sleep like a knife, and that's how you start your day. And that is mostly driven by the fact that you must be sitting in your cushioned swivel seat at your workstation in your workplace by a set time that's determined by your employer. That right there is not being yourself. You wouldn't do that naturally. Say that your quitting time near the end of the day isn't until 5 p.m. and it's 4:48 p.m., so you're just going to screw around and play some absurd charade again for these last 12 minutes, and you're going to have your computer monitor set up in such a way so that no one sees you on the ESPN website, and you can quickly minimize the browser window, and you've got a spreadsheet behind it that it can quickly show that that's what you were really working on. Well, that's not the best version of yourself. Sunday night, you've got a pit in your stomach again because you know you have another week of this mostly soulless grind ahead of you that you just don't know a way out of. And even if your job isn't so bad, ask yourself, I mean, really, in your heart of hearts, if you could be doing anything, is this really how you would choose to spend your time? If you could be doing anything in the world at all, are you being yourself? When you sell your time for money and there's a lack of passion or meaning behind it, you're going through this one precious life of yours, not even able to be yourself. Well, you actually have a choice in this. So if you're not building passive income for strict financial wealth, then for goodness sake, do it so that you can buy back your life and actually be yourself. You know, they say that more money doesn't make you a better person or a worse person. It makes you more of what you already are. And I think that's largely true. But more time really makes you more of what you are. And it can make you yourself. Do you like hiking mountains? Now more time means that you can hike the 7 highest summits in the world, the highest one on each continent. Do you like volunteering your time to your church or to elderly people at your local assisted living home? Do you get such a feel good from that you wish you could do it every other day instead of twice a month? Well, now you can with freedom of time. More time makes you more of what you are, and it allows you to be yourself. You can establish multiple income streams that take very little of your own involvement. And you know what? Let's just say that you're only halfway there. Well, you're still going to benefit. Okay, look, say that your job pays you $10,000 a month right now, and say that you work 47 hours a week at that job, which actually is the average number of hours for an American worker. Say that on top of that, your real estate pays you $5,000 a month, but it only takes 1 hour a week to manage that. So you've now got half as much income from your income property as you do from your own job. The property only takes an hour a week of your managing the manager and such, and your job takes 47 hours a week for just twice the income. Now, for one thing, you are starting to realize the gravity of my favorite investor metric, your return on time invested. But you know what else? Even if you're halfway there, you can live a life that your coworkers can't already. You're going to start to notice it with little things that they say, like, you know, I thought about going to the concert this weekend, but tickets were $120 each, so, you know, I just couldn't swing it. You won't think anything of going to the concert. You will have substantially more discretionary income. Again, you'll be able to be yourself, and they can't be. And here's what's going to happen to you as you build multiple passive income streams. You're going to notice that everyone else, they seem to be getting frugal with their money comparatively. And you know what? You're going to get more frugal too. But here's the difference. You're going to get frugal with your time. The scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce. So your coworkers with zero passive income, they're going to work overtime on a Saturday for extra job income because they view money through a frugal lens. You're going to get more abundantly minded. You're going to be more frugal with your time. You're going to take your family to the lake this weekend. They're frugal with their money. You're frugal with your time. Be frugal with your time, not your money. That is the only answer because money is the abundant resource and time is the scarce one. And then look at how you spent your weekend. You didn't grind on a spreadsheet. You went to the lake with your family, or you did whatever else you wanted to do. Again, you acted like yourself. So we're still talking here. If your passive income has reached up to $5K per month and your active day job income is $10K, it begins to affect your psychology, not only your outcomes. That's because even if you're fired from your job or you're laid off, at least you're able to think, you know what? It's not an absolute tragedy. I can float for a while. And you know what else? You might begin to let your opinion fly at work rather than toting some company line all the time. Toting some company line is not being yourself. As long as you aren't hurting others, stating your well-founded opinion is being yourself. So my point is that even when you're halfway there on your passive income goal, you will already start being who you are becoming. And this is powerful stuff. You know that the real estate income will flow independently of what happens at your job. They're just not related. Again, multiple sources of income. Now, when it comes to finances, I think most people ask themselves the wrong question. They're asking, now, how can I best sell my time? But instead, you're at a higher level. You're asking, gosh, what's my time worth? So be frugal, but be frugal with your time, not your money. Well, now, how do you think about retirement then? How does that all mix in here? I think retirement is when you can start being yourself, but most people correlate the word retirement with some predetermined, even preordained age in your life that you hit. And that's really more of a figment of our societal belief systems than anything else. I think that the former heavyweight boxing champion George Foreman said it as well as anyone when he said, the question isn't at what age I want to retire, it's at what income. That right there is really one of the better finance quotes that I've ever heard from a sports figure. And retirement is certainly an interesting word. I think its definition is morphing. We've got a great guest today where we're going to talk about what retirement means today and the importance of passive income and a whole lot more. So let's meet her. We are talking to a financial planner today, but don't tune out because she is not a typical financial advisor. You know, when I listen to her, she actually gets me nodding my head more than shaking my head. Financial expert Steve Savant, through a CNN property, called her a cultural contrarian, the matron of money, and a Joan of Arc crusader separating financial fact from fiction. In fact, she is one of the original Rich Dad advisors. She is the founder of Partners for Prosperity, and she shuns common financial products like stocks, bonds, savings accounts, and CDs. Her work has been recommended by many people, actually all of whom have appeared on the show here with us. Robert Kiyosaki, Tom Wheelwright, Patrick Donahoe, Garrett Gunderson. Investopedia recently named her to their list of the 100 most influential financial advisors, and she's authored a half dozen books. And in addition to all that, she's an active alpaca farmer on her rural Texas home. It's a real pleasure to welcome on to Get Rich Education today, Kim Butler.
Hello, Keith. So happy to be here.
It's so good to have you here. So you can probably tell I'm already mocking typical financial planning a bit. Tell us why typical financial planning has failed.
Well, it is my passion to elaborate on that because it doesn't work. It frankly has never worked. And it's so frustrating that so much of our society is locked up in it. And the reason that it doesn't work is, first of all, it's only been around since the 50s or the 60s. the work that you and I do and all the guests that you just mentioned earlier do and have done forever is what traditional financial planning is about. People didn't even really used to use the word financial planning, but because it's so common today, we've really made a point in all of our educational material in defining typical financial planning, which is trying to develop a roadmap to get from here to there, assuming, really big word, assuming you know where there is.
If you don't know where there is, you can't very well draw a line from here to there and extrapolate out where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And when people assume that they do, and you know what? It's in my very early days, literally almost 30 years ago, my mother is the one that pushed back on this. I asked the typical financial planning question, when do you want to retire? And she was probably, I don't know, I'm guessing 48 at the time, late 40s.
Yeah.
And she said, I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to answer that question. And I said, I know, Mom, but you just got to give me an age. Otherwise, I can't plug it into my computer and give you all the other answers that I'm going to give you. I should have stopped right there. But no, I spent 5 years doing typical financial planning.
Tell us about your experience doing typical conventional financial planning and how you got so soured on that you never wanted to do it again.
Well, you'll recall that this is before the internet, so there weren't cool programs that you could get anywhere.
Right.
Only, quote, financial planners had them. And so I had this cool program and I used it over and over and over until I started to literally feel sick every time I opened it up because of that assume word. You assume a retirement age. Like I said, you're guessing. You talk to somebody in their mid 30s and they really don't have a clue when they're going to retire or what age or any of the things that you try to figure out. Because then the next question is, well, at what income level? Somebody in their mid 30s, even into their mid 50s, doesn't have an idea of a reasonable income level that they want to retire. And then you're going to ask other silly assumptive questions like what age you're going to die and how much inflation's going to be and what tax rate. So you put all these assumptions into this thing called a computer, and you spit out this thing called a financial plan, which assumes that if you do everything on this quote financial plan, that it's all going to come into reality. Well, it might be accurate from a mathematical standpoint. You can put in assumptions and do the right math.
Right.
But it had absolutely nothing to do with people's lives. And after 5 years of it, I just said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm making all these assumptions. They're not right. I'm tweaking the assumptions to make the thing reasonable so I don't scare somebody, which I should have been doing anyway. I should have been scaring them. And I'm not going to do this anymore.
Well, that's very virtuous of you to say that you're not going to do it anymore. One of the things we do here at Get Rich Education is, okay, some people ask this question with their financial planning and they think about retirement. When they hear financial planning, their mind quickly jumps to retirement. And the question they ask is, okay, how can I project how much income I'm going to need? That's what you really want to know. And one of the things you ultimately want to guess at. One of the things that we advocate is, why don't you just start building your passive income right now? That's one of the best ways you can best position yourself for how much income you're going to need later. You don't need to wait later and do all this postponement. And yeah, a lot of these typical products that you're talking about, Kim, like with what you did when you were doing typical financial planning, most of the clients that you're serving, yeah, they might see that you can project that they're going to have what looks to them like a big number, a big lump sum in retirement, $2,258,321. Okay, well, what's that mean? Now, how does that really correlate to your lifestyle? Because most people don't think about the degradation on that amount of inflation and emotion and taxes and fees and volatility. So you need to translate that number to how you want to live.
Absolutely. And one of the favorite sayings that we get and use to help people understand this issue is that cash is not king. Cash flow is king.
Yeah.
And so if you are seeking cash flow, then you have so much more control over your lives. And I always like to talk with clients about let's practice today. You're in your whatever, mid 30s, 40s, even 50s. you don't necessarily need, and I have a problem with the word need, but we'll just work with it for now. You don't necessarily need cash flow today, but let's practice. Let's find some investments that cash flow. Let's get started in the cash flowing environment so that when you are 59 and a half or 65 or 73 or 80, when you really should be retiring, you don't have to make this big decision of, oh my gosh, I have my $2 million and X many pennies. That was funny what you brought up. IRA to roll over or 401k or 403b to roll over. And I have to make this huge decision to somehow convert that into cash flow. Don't do that to yourself. Start creating cash flowing investments today so that when the time does come that you have that big 401k to roll over or whatever it is, maybe you've sold a business or you've sold a big piece of real estate and you're ready to do something different. You're practiced. You're ready. You know how to create cash flow.
So, Kim, what you and I are talking about right now is deemed still as countercultural by mainstream society. But yet, if someone listens to you or I talk, yet it seems to make so much sense to them. So with that in mind, why do you think that people still have confidence in these typical financial models that don't work? And look at the big picture. It's not a tax deferral plan in your 403b or your 401k. It's really a life deferral plan when you think about it. So why do some people keep following other people right over the cliff? Like, this is the outcome that it results in. These typical products just don't work. So why do people keep having confidence in them? What do you think?
Two specific reasons: the media and the financial institutions. And I remember talking about the financial institutions eons ago with Robert on radio, because podcasts didn't exist then. The financial institutions want your money and they want to hold on to it as long as they possibly can. And so they like the idea of keeping the money. And so they're going to promote that. And so when you think about prepaying mortgages, 401ks and 403bs, and all the other typical financial strategies that are used, it's also that the financial institution can keep the money. Well, the media is going to parrot that, right? And then the media is also going to put forth the ideas of their advertisers, which are, you guessed it, the financial institutions. So that's why your and my style of thinking is foreign, because the financial institutions that are massively huge advertisers in the media, which of course are going to not only advertise, but then they're going to write articles about the things that their advertisers are talking about. That's what everybody is paying attention to. And that's why it's so important that you and I continue to get out there with our podcasts and our books and everything else, because people need to know that there's a different way. And then there's another important aspect of this, and that's that in the past, so like if you think about 20 years ago when I first made my transition, when I started to talk about what you and I do, I really got some funny looks. I mean, people were like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this. But today, just like you've experienced, when you and I talk about what we talk about, people are like, yeah, I've kind of always thought that, but I never really knew how to do it or what words to put around it. So yeah, we're making progress. I mean, the shift in our society is happening. We just need to keep going.
Yeah, there are these traditional notions that remain out there. For example, when you say the word investing to somebody, stocks are often what first come to mind. And I know you and I both agree, Kim, that stock investing by and large is speculation. It's not investing. But another phrase that you might say to someone is financial planning. And I think when the phrase financial planning is aired out, a person thinks retirement, and it correlates that. And you brought up retirement, and, retirement's kind of an interesting word. What are your thoughts about the word retirement and what that really means today?
Well, there's a favorite definition that Todd Langford, who's my husband in full disclosure, but has a company called Truth Concepts, and he has software that enables us to prove out all of these theories that you and I talk about conceptually. He lets us prove them numerically. His definition of retirement is to take out of service. And if you think about that definition, and there's many of them, but that singular definition of retirement, to take out of service, holy cow, who wants that done to them? That's not a good thing. And I've seen this play out in my own family's lives. I've got some parents and some in-laws that are retired, and I have some parents and in-laws that are still working in their early 80s. And it is a mile difference between the lifestyle, the mentality, the physicality, the abundance of those two different groups, those that are working and those that are not. So I think retirement is a joke, and I think it should not happen. And I think we need to defer. Everybody talks about deferring money. I think we should defer retirement because, yeah, maybe when you're 85, but not until then.
So do you think a person is retired if they're 66 and they don't work a conventional job, but they're just out there doing what they want to do, and they're swinging golf clubs and they're hiking in Bryce Canyon National Park? I guess that person is not really taken out of service then, right? They're financially free. They're doing what they want to do, and they're still being vibrant and robust, which kind of flies in the face of being taken out of service.
Yes. And we could say that it's just semantics, how you talk about it. But frankly, there are some people that have figured out how to retire well, and they have good cash flow, so they can go pursue things. But I really feel strongly about the act of service. And it's certainly not something that maybe everybody agrees with. But if you live your life solely selfishly, I think you get a certain kind of life. Whereas if you live your life in the service of others, I'm not talking 24/7. I'm just talking about part of the time you're serving others, then I think you get a different kind of life. And so I really believe strongly that people need to find ways to serve others. And in that, they will get joy. And frankly, sometimes they will also get paid, which then creates even more cash flow. And that keeps the circle going.
That is a great answer. Of course, we serve people with good housing. When we're a real estate investor, you're not being taken out of service, and I love that. That's a really elegant definition of what retirement is. Well, Kim characterizes what she does as prosperity economics, so we're going to come back and ask her just about that. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Our guest is Kim Butler. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. For an income property investor like you that needs an income property loan, go to Ridge Lending Group. And over the years, you've heard owner Chaley Ridge generously give her time to you right here on the show as a guest. Ridge provides investment property loans in almost every U.S. state, and you're going to find out how they've helped more Americans realize their dreams of financial freedom through real estate than any other mortgage lender in the entire nation when you get started at ridgelendinggroup.com. MC Laubscher is the host of the top-rated business and investing podcast, Cash Flow Ninja, and also the president of Producers Wealth. Producers Wealth assists people in creating, protecting, and perpetually multiplying wealth in any economy through creating processes that help them increase their production, provide them with liquidity, passive income generators, and opportunities for enormous growth. Learn more about their time-tested and proven systems at yourownbankingsystem.com.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Tom Wheelwright. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We're talking with original Rich Dad Advisor Kim Butler. Kim is the founder of the Prosperity Economics Movement. Her website is prosperity.com. Kim, tell us about prosperity economics. What is it?
Well, it's a term that I coined to describe the work that we do because I had such a hard time helping people understand it, and it needed a name. And so I would say that wealthy people have been practicing prosperity economics since the beginning of time. I mean, if you look at a book like The Richest Man in Babylon, it talks about the same types of things that you and I have been talking about forever. And we all know that there are wealthy people all over this country that never did a quote financial plan and may or may not have invested in the stock market, but we know that they didn't get rich because of their 401k plan. So it's just a term that I coined to describe this effort of creating cash flow, having control over your money, and working with the types of investments that really will get money to either grow or to create that cash flow that so many people are seeking, and yet so many people really don't know how to make happen.
I think if a person does not care about their financial future, then the 401k might be okay because they just truly don't care. They don't care to figure these things out. But if you do care about your financial future, you really do need to start thinking about some things like rather than being involved in a salary reduction plan, which is what 401ks were originally called, why not tap into a salary increase plan? You can actually do that with something that creates income, but that just doesn't occur to most people. So if someone is inclined to look into those things, there's just still a knowledge gap there.
Absolutely. And you used really good words there. It is amazing what, again, our press and even the government has done in the naming of things and the wording of things that really misleads people. But you said it well. People need to care about their finances. In fact, I always believe people should have two jobs, their day job and their job of their family's finances, and creating the opportunities and being diligent about saving and tracking money and learning about how to do investment real estate, because that's really the best first place to start to get cash flowing investments is passive real estate oriented environments.
People spend all this time at their job learning about how work works. They don't spend any time learning about how money works, but yet money is the main reason that they go to work.
Yes, and we all know that college kids are not taught anything about this. I'm always just amazed how little money education college kids have.
Yeah, that just still has not changed very much. And it makes sense for everyone to think about themselves as an investor, because actually every person is an investor. We all make hundreds of investment choices every day. Everything. If you go to the supermarket and you buy triple washed bagged spinach, and you pay $2 more for that than you do a loose head of spinach that you have to wash all the dirt out of, well, you need to spend 8 minutes washing it. Well, you just made an investment choice. You said that $2 is worth more than 8 minutes of your time if you chose the prepared spinach. So everything is an investment choice. It actually trickles into every little action we take each day.
Absolutely. And it's something, too, that we are always helping people understand. It's a basic economic theory that everybody learned in high school and college, and it's called opportunity cost.
Yeah.
And yet most financial planners, your typical financial planner, is not even going to teach it because most of them don't know. They don't remember about, again, this basic economic theory, but it's not brought forward in a way that people can deal with today. And what you just talked about with your decision on your spinach is an opportunity cost issue, because frankly, depending on your level of income, somebody might be better off investing, and I mean that word literally in this instance, in pre-washed spinach, because the amount of money that they earn for those 8 minutes, right? Whereas somebody else would be better investing the time in washing the spinach. And that's an opportunity cost decision. I mean, it's stretching it a little bit, but you brought the spinach analogy up, so I thought I would just run with it.
And opportunity cost has so much to do with what is seen versus what is unseen, because what is seen to that grocery store consumer is that they save $2, but what is unseen is what they could have done with those 8 minutes had they had that extra time. Because it's never seen, it's never realized, and because it's never realized, it's often never even contemplated.
Absolutely. So we have these 7 principles of prosperity, and the third one is measure. And when most people think about the word measure and the typical financial planning environment, they're obviously going to measure, how much money do I have? How much money do I need? What rate of return can I earn? But that's not what we mean by measure. What we mean is to bring in that opportunity cost. And the way that you measure opportunity cost, you first have to learn about what it is. Then you measure it by applying an interest rate to a decision that you're going to make. So let's blow it up a little bit. It's not maybe a $2 spinach difference. Maybe it's a $200 car insurance decision. In other words, you could go with a high deductible and save a couple $100 a year, or a low deductible and spend a couple $100 more a year. And people think, no big deal. Well, that's $200 times how many years you're going to drive a car. I mean, okay, maybe not because self-driving cars, but at least for now, you're going to drive a car for probably 50, 60, 70 years times just say 5%. That's a huge decision. That's what opportunity cost is.
Yes, we're all faced with bigger opportunity cost decisions regularly than just washing a head of spinach. If you have a car loan at a 4% interest rate and you decide to go ahead and pay that off, you've seen that you save money from paying interest. But again, there's the opportunity cost of you could have invested in cash flowing real estate that throws off maybe a 9% cash on cash return, but you'll never realize that. So there are that 5 points of arbitrage there between 9 and 4. And oftentimes, mainstream society just doesn't realize that opportunity cost. But Kim, you touched on the 7 principles of prosperity, which is really a cornerstone to prosperity economics. Tell us more about the 7 principles.
Well, these are similar to the fact that I coined the prosperity economics term. These are principles that I just wrote on a single piece of paper. I didn't invent them. I didn't come up with them. They've been around since the beginning of time. And yet, as we've talked about, it is something that everybody that has wealth has practiced. So I mentioned the 3rd principle, that's measure. They each have a single word. The first one is think, and it talks about mindset and how important it is to be conscious of your mindset. And you can either be thinking from a prosperous mindset or a scarcity mindset. And
So
believe me,
key.
we all do both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I still get stuck in scarcity thinking sometimes. However, we caught ourselves. We know how to switch. And like you said, it's super critical. So it's the first principle. Second one is see, S-E-E. In other words, you really need to see the big picture all the time. Third is measure. We talked about the opportunity cost. Fourth is flow, because we must be looking for cash flow, right?
Absolutely.
And then 5th is control, and we want to be controlling our dollars. 6th is move, because we want money to be moving through things all the time. And 7th is multiply, because when we combine things like cash flowing real estate, whole life insurance to build our liquidity fund, and other types of investments that get our dollars to move, then we can get a multiplier effect on those dollars, which means that $1 is really impacting all of those things and improving our lives, getting us more money, more benefits, et cetera. So these 7 principles are really critical, and I elaborate on them extensively on our website and, of course, in some of the books. So if people are curious, they can track those down for more information.
So the 7 principles of prosperity are: first, think, which I absolutely love. I like to think, don't live below your means, expand your means. The second one is see. The third one is measure, getting quantitative and into the numbers. The fourth one is flow. You got to think about flow rather than just storing a pool of money. What is your flow of money? And then the 5th one is control. We talk about the importance of being a direct investor a lot here on Get Rich Education. The 6th one, move. I like that because that implies the velocity of money. And then the 7th one, multiply. At Partners for Prosperity, one of the interesting ways I know that you multiply is you do use that vehicle of whole life insurance for, and I love how you call it a liquidity fund, because the word liquidity, that implies that there is movement there, which is that 6th of 7 principles of prosperity. And, you're not using words like scrimp or save or budget necessarily, because that reinforces the wrong mindset. So you call it a liquidity fund. Tell us more about how you integrate that with whole life insurance.
Well, the funny thing is whole life insurance is probably the closest product to real estate that you could possibly find. The two work so well together. And the cash value of whole life insurance, so I'm talking the boring old whole life, it's been around for a couple hundred years, very traditional, is not only liquid, it's a perfect emergency opportunity fund. Well, people that own real estate need to have an emergency opportunity fund because, number one, they have emergencies like, the roof needs to be repaired or a tenant's gone for a while, et cetera, with your real estate. And number two, what if that opportunity presents itself and you need to make a fast down payment? Maybe you can't get financing in place quick enough, so you need to pay cash for a property, which you're then going to go refinance, or you need to make a down payment on a property so you can tie it up, or whatever it is. You want to have an opportunity fund. And everybody talks about just the emergency part, but that's boring. Who wants to talk about emergencies all the time? We want an emergency opportunity fund, but that opportunity fund needs to be liquid, and nobody wants to store cash in a bank at 0.001% taxable these days. And so whole life insurance enables you to store cash that's liquid at about 3-4% in today's numbers that is not taxable, and yet that you can get your hands on in 7 to 10 days. So it's perfect to work with real estate. And then the death benefit part of the whole life insurance combines really well with things like charitable remainder trusts and other strategies that are going to be on the exit side of investment real estate. So those two products really combine well to support each other and enable each other and take care of the limitations of each other, because we would never call whole life insurance an investment, but we call real estate investment. We also are very clear that real estate's not liquid, and yet whole life insurance is. So again, combining these two really enables them to make each other better.
I know that in some circles, life insurance has a bad name, but with the way that Kim does it and the whole life insurance product that she offers, it is something that provides you with liquidity, and it basically just gives a slight investing tailwind to all of your investments because you can use your money in more than one place at one time.
And it works with velocity because it requires cash flow. You're supposed to put money in it on a regular basis, and then you can borrow against the dollars to go get your real estate, and then you can use the real estate to pay back the loans, and then you can get another piece of real estate. So it's that whole velocity of money thing going in a complete circle.
Well, I want to ask you more about that in a minute, but before you go, Kim, you are quite a reader, and you're also quite an accomplished author. So why don't you tell us quickly about one of your own books, and then secondly, someone else's book that you'd recommend?
Absolutely. So for your listeners, I think the best book that I have that would be the closest match is called Busting the Retirement Planning Lies, because as you know, we don't really like the idea of retirement, and we find 401ks and 403bs very limiting. I think it's actually just busting the retirement lies. Got to keep my own title straight. The work in that book really shares some very inspiring examples of people that found their true love and don't consider work anymore. And then also it gives some very specific examples of how ineffective 401ks and that type of product are. So Busting the Retirement Planning Lies by Kim Butler. And then the other book that I want to share with your listeners is The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. And it's an older book, so fabulous to talk about real estate law and property law and contract law and why the U.S. does such a good job in that category. And it is a fabulous read. So that, again, is The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto.
Gosh, I've got to say, I have not heard of that one myself. So thank you for those two recommendations. Well, Kim, how can the Get Rich Education audience learn more about you?
Check out partners4prosperity.com. So the website, partners4prosperity.com. What I would recommend is they go download the Prosperity Acceleration Pack, and it has the 7 principles of prosperity amongst a bunch of other things. We do provide access to cash flowing real estate deals, and we teach people about whole life insurance, and there's a variety of other alternative investments, meaning not in the stock market. But everything goes back to those 7 principles of prosperity, and they're elaborated on there thoroughly.
Kim Butler, you're one of the few financial advisors I actually enjoy speaking with. Thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Absolutely. I loved it, Keith. Thank you.
Great thoughts from Kim today. That's a pretty elegant definition of retirement, and those 7 principles of prosperity are completely on point. You know, one other thing that I like about Kim that really stands out to me is that she chooses her words really well. We chatted some more outside of our time on the show here, and she brought up that in the example where you're essentially borrowing off an automobile loan at 4% and reinvesting the difference for a 9% cash flow, you've just made a 125% return, and I absolutely love that line of thinking. Now, I've had the debt-free crowd bring up a point about how they would want to retire a low-interest rate car loan, and you just got to do that because it's awful to have debt on a depreciating asset like a car. Well, my point is that the car is going to depreciate whether you have a loan on it or not. That does not change the arbitrage proposition on that car at all. So then my point is, why would you want to have 100% equity tied up in a car that's going to depreciate in value when that position is going to limit the income stream that you can draw from elsewhere? Kim's resources are in the show notes. Old belief systems could be degrading your opportunities and your quality of life. Build multiple income streams. With a 401k, you're just hoping to die before your money runs out. What an awful way to live. And you made sacrifices all your life just to get money into the 401k in the first place. And with the 401k, tax deferral and compounded returns are not going to get you where you want to be either. But you know what? We're going to discuss that and so much more about the 401k in 2 weeks, because that's when we're going to have the very inventor of the 401k here on the show with you and I. He was supposed to have been here earlier, but we had to postpone that for 2 weeks from today. And you know something? I've got to admit, I'm a little apprehensive about having him here. You know that I think for all but the most irresponsible people in society, 401ks are just awful, dreadfully bad. Ugh. The fact that they take money out of your pocket every month when a sound investment instead puts money into your pocket every month, that's just the start of why I can't stand most defined contribution retirement plans. For decades, in the best decades of your life, it performs oppositely then of how a good investment should. So I'm just telling you how I really feel. I'm a little apprehensive about that show in 2 weeks because he helped invent the thing that I think reduces the quality of countless people's lives. But he and I have already had a chat on the phone now, the inventor of the 401k, Ted Benna. He doesn't think that 401ks are serving people very well either, so I'm confident that we can have a nice, amicable interview here. I'll tell you, if I had maxed out a 401k every year when I was still working at a day job, you probably would have never even heard my name because I would still be working there as a day job as a construction materials inspector because that's what I was doing then. And again, I wasn't being myself. And now you have heard of me, and I'm here being myself, talking about what I like discussing most: real estate investing, economics, and wealth mindset. I mean, typical financial planning, why do most people even do that stuff? Well, I think it's because that's all that they know and that's just what everyone else does. And that's an awful reason. When one of the top reasons for doing something is just a largely unsubstantiated, well, that's just what everyone else does, well, then it is time for you to ask some very real questions. On next week's show, we're going to focus more strictly on real estate investing. And then the week after that, again, we'll host the inventor of the 401k, Ted Benna. Thanks to our guest, Kim Butler, today, with a little help from Robert Sislow. Thanks to the team here at Get Rich Education, developers John Collins and Marcus Whelan, sound engineer Bidrin Jampo, web designer Nikon Roy. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Be yourself and don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
If you want to retire in 5 years or less through real estate investing, then pay close attention as I'm about to share my proven recipe with you. This is Brad Sumrock, and I've taught thousands of people just like you how to replace their incomes, quit their jobs, or simply have more income and freedom than they ever thought possible. And we do this by investing in apartment buildings. After starting with no experience, I managed to pocket over $1 million in cash and retire from my 17-year corporate job after only 3 years of apartment investing. And I have hundreds of successful students that have had similar results. If you want to get out of the rat race or simply have more income and freedom in your life, then investing in apartment buildings might be the answer for you. Visit our website at bradsumrock.com to get more information about our upcoming training events. That's bradsumrock.com.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.